Mom said to always have fresh undies. Mom's right. Get new fresh underwear and loungewear from Tommy John. How about a Mother's Day gift? Dreamily soft loungewear. 20% off your first order. TommyJohn.com/herd. See the site for details. I was just talking to Jonathan Vilma, who lives down in Miami, during the commercial break. I'll bring him on in a second here. And we were every few years I go to the Super Bowl. Miami is one of the great underrated food cities in the world, because there's so much culture there. So whenever I go to Miami for a Super Bowl, I call somebody that knows it, and I go to a different kind of restaurant. Cuban Monday, Argentinian Tuesday. Miami is crazy. And the funny thing about Miami, you think L.A. is a crazy town, Hollywood. L.A. goes to bed early, 11:30 p.m. Miami, I went to dinner in Miami. So I go to this restaurant. Somebody goes, it's great. It's like Argentinian. So, it's great. I get there at 7. I think I'm going to go a little late. 9, nobody's there.
Yeah, you're early.
And I'm like, is this a bad restaurant? I'm leaving at 9:45. Old people, octogenarians, are piling in. Miami doesn't go to dinner. Miami Beach, they don't go to dinner till 9:45.
It's like Europe, though. It's exactly how Europe is. I've unfortunately never been to Miami. It is on my bucket list. First place I want to go.
Great food.
Once we can travel again. I'm a huge foodie. I know. I want to go, and I just want to experience everything. I told Joy she's got to take me. Best
Cuban food in America. Oh, God, it's fantastic. Gets a little hot in the summer. Jonathan Vilma, Fox Sports analyst, 10 years in the NFL, a first-round pick. Former Hurricane now joining us. 3 Pro Bowls, Just loving Miami.
I wish it was 3 Super Bowls. I would have taken that.
3 Pro Bowls, 1 Super Bowl. So let's go back to when you got drafted. I remember your college career like it was yesterday. You were the linebacker. Were you a week out? Did you have a sense where you were going to go, Jonathan? Were you anxious? Did you really, you and your agent, really had you mapped it out? Give me your experience a week out and the day.
So a week out, I did have a good sense of where I was going to go. Got drafted by the Jets. Herm Edwards was the head coach at the time. And I remember that was the only visit. I took my visits up to the other teams, and every time I'd go up to these teams, they would ask me, how much do you weigh? And then the very next question would always be, well, how much weight do you think you can put on? And that was my knock coming out. I was light, so everyone was trying to beef me up. And the reason why I had a feeling the Jets were going to draft me was because, we're going through the questions, et cetera. And then inevitably the question comes up. Herm asked me, so Vilma, how much do you weigh? And I was like, I weigh right now, 233. He was like, well, how much did you play at? I said, I played at about 226, 227. And I was like, but I can hold this. As soon as I started saying, but I can hold this 233, he's like, no. I want you back down. Go back down. How much did you play at? I said, 226, 227. He said, go. Go back to 226, 227. That's where I want you at. I'm going to get you. Number 12. I'm coming for you. I don't want you to put on any weight. All right? So when you come over here, you better be at 226, 227. That's it. I want you to run. So I'm just sitting there like, okay, all right, that could work. And I called my agent afterwards on the way to the airport. He's like, how'd it go? I said, I think that the Jets are going to get me if I'm there. He's like, you sure? And I was like, yeah. And I didn't tell him everything what happened, but I said, coaches don't talk like that unless they really, really want you. So I had a good feeling.
Well, it's great because, and I love Herm. Herm wanted you to be you. And It's really interesting, Jonathan. We talk about all these quarterbacks and these players, and we try to guess how successful they'll be. And I was saying earlier, what we should do is wait for them to get drafted. And if they go to a good staff, that tells me 75% of it. Like Herm knows defense. He's at Arizona State. Not a shock. They play good defense. So go to your career with the Jets and Saints. How important, once you land in college, is your coaching? Do you give it 20% credit, 50%? Because I think you start looking at these quarterbacks, if you get a bad first coach, I'm not sure you can recover.
I give it minimum 50% credit of where you go in the staff and the coaching staff. I always said going into college, it was 50% the player and then developing the player. That's the mark of a really good college coach. Now it's transitioning and translating to the NFL because you're getting a lot of these players. They're stuck in these systems, especially the quarterbacks as we're talking about them. It's these systems that are not necessarily conducive for the NFL. And I'm talking about the quarterbacks. They stand there, they do like a little fake zone read, and then they only look at half the field. And when you only look at half the field, that means you only know half the defense. You don't understand the full concept of a cover 2 or cover 4, or when I say 2 safeties high, or 4 safeties dropping back, which would be 2 corners actually helping back in coverage as well. When you don't understand that, it now takes the NFL and those coaches to teach that. And so there's more teaching going on for these college quarterbacks that are coming into the NFL, because they have to understand the coverages, the blitz schemes. Not only do they have to understand the offense, it's the defense that they have to understand. And the best teachers are the ones that are getting the most out of these quarterbacks. And to your point, if you have a coach, and it doesn't have to be a defensive or offensive head coach, it's just that whoever is going to spend the most time with this quarterback, if you don't have a good teacher, then there's no chance for that quarterback to be successful.
You know, it's interesting. And I want you to go back to your career on this, a decade in the NFL and a 3-time Pro Bowler, is that a lot of our great athletes, the late Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, LeBron, Tom Brady, they've got this burning obsession, this chip on their shoulder. That, and it's Trevor Lawrence comes out and his dad's like, yeah, he didn't have that. Like he could give up football, he's happy. And it's a little alarming for a lot of people. Go back to your career. Were most of the great players chip on their shoulder guys, or were there some guys that were good families, balanced kid? They didn't have to resent somebody to be good at what they were good at.
Yeah, I can't remember too many players that I played with that were just freaking awesome, that didn't have a chip on their shoulder. But at the same time, when you look at Trevor Lawrence, he's got all the physical skills. He's had it since he was 10 years old. He's clearly very smart, can throw, went to the best school. He's been the number 1 player since, again, he was 10 years old. So there was never a time where he was slighted for his size like I was, or like Drew Brees was slighted for his size. And when he blew out his shoulder and they said he'd never come back again, there was never a time, at least from what I can see from the outside looking in, where there was serious adversity that Trevor Lawrence had to face in order to shape him as a man in his career. And with that being said, I don't want to intertwine the two. Because he doesn't have a chip on his shoulder doesn't mean that he's not driven. Those two, we're trying to marry the two because we've seen the Michael Jordans and the Tom Bradys of the world. But the reality is you can be extremely, extremely competitive and hard on yourself without having a chip on your shoulder. He doesn't need to be reminded of that one coach who said, okay, you're not going to be good, when there's 1,000 other coaches that said you're the best quarterback in college football, right? It doesn't translate for him, but he can still be super competitive, work very hard. And I've seen that just in his performance. He had a tremendous freshman year. Then he comes back. All of a sudden, he was struggling a little bit sophomore year. Then there were the corrections. And the corrections came because he wanted to be better. He's a competitor, and he wanted to be as best as he could. The corrections didn't come because he said, oh, everyone's talking badly about me, and I'm not playing well, so now I'm going to show everyone. He said, you know what? I need to improve, and I know I need to improve because I want to be as good as I can possibly be. So those two are separate for me. A chip on your shoulder and being uber competitive and wanting to be the most successful. You can have those two separately. He doesn't have the chip, but he can still be very, very, very competitive, very skilled, very good, and can still win you a lot of games.
So you played 4 years in the Mecca, New York, that media. Then you went to a small market 6 years in New Orleans. The Jets have not had success with quarterbacks. Darnold's now leaving. Zach Wilson will come in. Zach Wilson's a small-town guy. So you played college at a big city, Miami, intense. Then you go to an intense NFL environment. Then you go to the more, the Saints, it's a smaller market. It's a little bit more supportive in the media. Tell me about what Zach Wilson